Hello, my name's Andrew, and today we're doing a first impression review of the Wildling HALDY boot with Wildling's fancy new sole, which we're going to talk about, but let's just take a look at the toe box first. So I feel like Wildling's changed this a little bit too from some of their older models, because like with the Northwolf, for example, they've got this wraparound lining here, and I felt like they just, in terms of width, they're a little more medium width, but when I put on the HALDY, it was like, there's just more room in there, you know? It feels like it has a little bit more sneaker shape now, and there's just more material on the top to just give it a little bit more flex without any restriction. They've also added a side rubber guard all the way around, so this has definitely improved the water resistance, and we'll talk about that a little bit more when we get to the bottom of the shoe. But in terms of material, this one is made with cotton twill, and you can actually add some beeswax to add a little bit more water resistance, but it does have, you can't see it, but it has a polyester lining inside, and that adds a little bit more water resistance as well. It does subtract a little bit of breathability from the boot, but it's got a wool felt lining, and that really helps when you've got a synthetic mid layer for water resistance, because it's very breathable. The puffiness just gives it a nice soft feel inside the boot. It's also antimicrobial and temperature regulating and insulating, so yeah, I love wool insulation. Another thing I love about Wildlings, I'll just fold the boot down here. You can see that it's got a leather strip, and this runs all the way down the back where your heel is, so it makes it easy to slide into a taller boot like this, but it also provides a little more durability so that you're not wearing down the wool in the back as you walk. Got a nice pull tab here to get them on, and then they have regular eyelets here and then more quick lace eyelets here, so if you can just loosen these up a little bit, it makes it easier to slip into the boot without having to undo all of the laces. In terms of the sole, I believe it's still a 3.5 millimeter sole. The product page didn't say, but that's generally what Wildlings have been. And it's kind of cool because they've retained like the tabby style split, you know, where they split the boot in half. There's also another line here, which adds a lot of vertical flexibility. So they felt really natural to me. And the thing that surprised me is that the old ones, other than here and here, they don't have that wraparound rubber guard. And like I said, this is kind of a water resistance issue where I couldn't really use them, you know, in really wet grassy conditions or, you know, puddles and things like that. And then also here, even though they had a little bit of protection, I felt like this was a vulnerable spot if I was going to be out in really wet conditions. But now the sole is just one piece, and like I said, they've cut the line, so they've retained that flexibility, but you've got a lot more waterproofing here and then up around, wrapping around the sides. It's still not a boot that I would use, you know, for like hiking in the jungle where it's, you know, or swamp or something like that, where you need a waterproof upper, but I feel like the water resistance has improved a lot. And in terms of the feel, it's like, it almost feels more natural to me than the original style, because I could almost feel, you know, like where the rubber ended on my feet. And it was just something I noticed, you know, like the sole is so thin that it didn't really impact ground feel or, you know, anything, but it was like there. And with the new sole, I just don't notice anything at all. It's like when I'm rolling along pavement, it's just smooth and it just feels completely like being barefoot, other than having a little bit of protection. And I like Wildlings rubber. I think it's got just a little bit of density to it, enough to deal with a little bit of gravel if you want to do that, or just some light trail walking, you know, where you're stepping over sticks and stones and things like that. I wouldn't take it on super rugged terrain or, you know, gravel all the time, because it is a thin sole and it can wear down. But the tread pattern is nice for walking on roads. It's got a good amount of grippiness to it, and it feels soft, you know, like you can walk around on pavement and concrete without your feet getting tired or feeling beat up. But if it's really cold and the thin wool insulation and the HALDY's not enough, you can add a wool felt insole. I use these in pretty much all of my winter barefoot boots. They're amazing because like the wool insulation here, it just adds a little more warmth, a little more breathability, also a little more padding. So if you're gonna be walking around city streets all day long, this can help just add a little bit of softness to the bottom of the boot. And this is really all you need. You don't need anything thicker than this. You don't need cushion. As long as you just have a little bit of padding, your feet will be fine all day long. But another thing I love to use with Wildlings is in gingy toe socks. And because my toes are kind of close together, they can get sweaty if I wear normal socks. So I love having this space here, you know, it just opens my toes up so that the air and the moisture can kind of move away from my toes and keep everything dry in there. And then they just feel soft and amazing. And they're merino wool, so really nice to have right next to your skin. But yeah, going back to the polyester lining, I think it'd be cool if Wildling made like a version of this boot, or any of their taller cut boots, really that had like a thicker cotton upper, and then they came like with beeswax already impregnated on the outside, and then they just took out the polyester lining, because I feel like that would increase the breathability but also still have a really high level of water resistance. But you can definitely treat them with something like beeswax or nick wax, which Wildling does sell a spray on their website. But overall, with the new toe box and sole, I feel like this is an excellent upgrade for Wildling, and they've made the HALDY a strong competitor for one of my favorite barefoot boots of all time so far. Like I mentioned, this is the Wildling Northwolf, another one that I really like. I would say that these are just a little bit less water resistant, so they're mostly good for dry, cold climates. But I just love the upper. This is the most unique fabric that I've ever seen on a barefoot boot. They look like a herringbone suit for your foot. They do have that tabby style sole, which I still think feels really good. It just doesn't have as much water resistance. You may notice that split a little bit. For something a little more rugged, this is the Vivo Barefoot Gobi Hiver. It's got a puffer jacket type upper, which looks really cool. Wide toe box, pretty similar to Wildling, maybe just a little bit more room. And then there's a little more protection. You know, if you're gonna do some light trails and stuff like that, this is a good boot for that. A little bit of water resistance, but if you're out in like rain, you know, or deep puddles, this upper part can get soaked through. Although, like Wildling, there is some really good protection wrapping around. So as long as the puddles, you know, aren't quite over here, you know, you're mostly fine. And then it's got a bungee upper, which is really convenient for slipping on and off, you know, without having to unlace the boots. In terms of the sole, it's 3.7 millimeters, so pretty similar to Wildling, just a little bit thicker, a little bit more durability for going on gravel and stuff like that, but a good grip, you know, a non-slip sole, and also this hex tread, which gives you a little bit of traction for multiple surfaces. Finally, another really convenient boot is the Magical Alaskan, and I freaking love the zip on this. This is one of my favorite features in a barefoot boot because you can open it up really easily, very quickly. It's got a nice puffy wool insulation that's very warm. And there's a good amount of room, especially vertically in this boot if you're someone with high arches. In the front, it's got a wide toe box, but it does just get a little bit more slim towards the front. They've got another version, which is the spring. This has a synthetic fleece lining, so it's a little bit cooler. It can work in higher temperatures. And I do like the toe box better on this one. There's just a little bit more room. It's a little bit less pointy. But either one gives you quite a bit of room, especially open up the laces. And then in terms of the sole, it's 6.5 millimeters. So still really flexible because they've cut these lines here, but this is the most protective out of the boots we've looked at. And it's got a decent grip for going on trails. Again, I wouldn't go down super slippery, muddy hills, but you know, rocks, gravel, anything, this will handle it better than the other ones because it's kind of one of those middle of the road boots where it's really nice on casual terrain, you know, roads and stuff like that, but you can take it on some fairly decent trails as long as it's not too slippery. Although I will say, like Wildling's original boots, it doesn't have much water resistance on the bottom of the boot, and one of the reasons why it's so flexible is because also, like Wildling, they haven't wrapped that around, you know, so you just have a flat sole. And yeah, there's pros and cons to that. Like I said, really good flexibility, but just not as much water resistance. All right, so that's my first impression of you of the Wildling HALDY and friends, and I'll keep you guys updated on the long-term review. But in the meantime, if you'd like to support the channel, you can shop the referral links down below, browse and filter more products with the shoe finder tool at my website barefootwear.org, or watch my zero drop transition video to learn more about barefooting. Finally, if you have a question about the Wildling HALDY or about barefoot shoes in general, let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching. Catch you next time. Peace.